Greetings, Springs Church, and welcome to our first day on the road to Emmaus journey together. We're going to begin in our first book, the book of Romans, and obviously starting in chapter 1. Chapter 1, to be completely honest, I think has some of the most sobering and some of the most scary scriptures found in all of the Bible. And I know that's not the way you kind of want to start a project like this together, but let me just read it to you and then explain just for a few moments exactly what I mean. Romans chapter 1, I'll start in verse 18. It says this. It says, "The wrath of God is being revealed from heaven against all the godlessness and wickedness of people who suppress the truth by their wickedness, since what may be known about God is plain to them because God has made it plain to them." Verse 21 goes on, "For although they knew God, they neither glorified him as God nor gave thanks to him, but their thinking became futile and their foolish hearts were darkened." Verse 24 says, "Therefore, God gave them over in the sinful desires of their hearts to sexual impurity for the degrading of their bodies with one another." Verse 26 says, "Because of this, God gave them over to shameful lust. Even their women exchanged natural sexual relations for unnatural ones." And then verse 28 says, "Furthermore, just as they did not think it worthwhile to retain the knowledge of God, so God gave them over to a depraved mind, so that they would do what ought not to be done." Talking to some of the younger people in the church body, especially in this generation, there's two theological perspectives that are out there that are completely false. One is universalism, this idea that we all get to heaven, no matter what religion we believe, no matter what we do in life. And the other is annihilationism, where when Jesus comes, suddenly those who didn't receive him would cease to exist, and then the rest of us would go up into glory. And I always wondered, why are those two theological perspectives around, especially in the church? And I began to realize because people have a hard time comprehending a God that could pour out wrath, that could punish, that could even be angry, that could have a place like hell where people would be sent. But listen to what Romans actually says. It says that God's wrath won't just be poured out one day in a place like hell. It says that God's wrath is actually being poured out right now. God is punishing. God is judging, even as we speak. It says this, that God's wrath is being revealed by God allowing people to burn in their hearts with their own desires and their own lust unchecked. God's wrath is being revealed by God allowing people to be given over to depraved minds. And man, does that not explain our culture in our society today, especially over the last 10 years? Think about where the debate of abortion has gone, even over the last 5 years. This idea that now we're talking about when kids are born, we can have a discussion of whether or not they can be killed. Think about the transgender issues. Think about the pornography we deal with in our day and age. Think about the sexual immorality. Think about homosexuality. Think about the suicide rates. When you start looking around us, doesn't it seem like things are going downhill? Like the lust of people's hearts, their minds are becoming more dark every single day as it goes by? So what's the answer to this? How do we respond as Christians? Well, I started going back through the scriptures and just rereading a little bit from the old and the new. And you know what I began to realize? Every time that God's wrath was being poured out on a people, a nation, a city, there was always a man or a woman or a group of God's people that would get together and they would stand in the gap and they would intercede. They would pray. Think about it. Moses on top of Mount Sinai. Abraham when Lot was going to be destroyed with the rest of Sodom and Gomorrah. Think about all the major and the minor prophets. Every time God brought judgment to the nation, what were they doing? They would pray. And you know what's amazing? Every time God found a man or a woman who would stand in the gap and intercede and pray, God would extend mercy through those prayers and he would pull away his judgment. Listen to me. God moves in mercy through the prayers of his people. We are co-laborers with him. So how do we respond to this as Christians? Well, to be honest, it just sends us to our prayer closets. And listen to me, and just send us to a place where we corporately pray together. If there's one thing that has gone downhill, as well as the depravity and the lust of people's hearts over these last couple generations, it's the corporate prayer meeting in the church. Isn't it amazing, as people are praying less, the society around us is getting worse? I believe if we would pray, confess our sins, call on God and ask for mercy, God's judgment and his wrath would begin to be lifted. And we would see young people and people of all ages in this generation come back to a right mind again, no longer being consumed with just foolish and dark thinking, but come back to the reality that there is a creator in heaven and maybe even see a revival someday. So here's just a few thoughts, some food for thought for us as we go on for the rest of our day, as we begin this journey, this road to Emmaus journey together. Church, let us be a praying people. And with that, we close over Romans chapter 1. Have a wonderful day.